So good morning to you all. Thank you for joining today's webinar. My name's Lily Williams and I'm the Partnerships Manager at BGL. Today I'm joined by Stephanie, New Business Manager, and Cassie, Head of Client Success at FYI. Built by accountants for accountants, FYI understands the day-to-day challenges you face better than anyone. They know the complexities of your workflow and the demands of managing clients' documents, tasks, and your practice. That's why FYI created a purpose-built platform that automates document and practice management. It's smart, simple, and intuitive, taking care of repetitive, menial tasks so you can take control of your work, time, and client relationships. FYI aren't changing what accountants do. They're changing how it's done. Simpler, smarter, faster, and secure, leaving you with more time for more so that you can focus on the things that really matter. Before we do get started, I'll just cover some general housekeeping. Today's session will be recorded. So if you miss anything or if you need to jump off early, you will receive a link to rewatch at a later date. The recording will also be posted on our YouTube channel. We do have the Q&A function available, so if you have any questions, please pop them here. And Steph, I'll hand it over to you to kick things off.
Thanks, Lily. Awesome intro. There's my new elevator pitch. Thank you very much. You might also see another face on the screen. We have the very lovely Trudy Saul from O'Connell's OBM, who'll be joining us as the customer story along the way. So the agenda for today, presuming that maybe some of you don't know FYI and what we do, I'll give a very quick overview of who we are. Cassie's going to jump in and then talk about the integration between FYI and CAS 360. Now, if you have come on board and you're thinking this is a BGL webinar on their Simple Fund product, this is the wrong webinar. This is about the CAS 360 integration. We'll then have a really quick chat with Trudy. We had a really good chat with her before the session, Cassie and I, and Trudy's office is using it really, really well. So we'd love for her to share how they're using it and the benefits for you all. And then we'll talk next steps. So FYI, hopefully this doesn't surprise anyone. If we move on here, please, Cass. So what we are your complete digital office in the cloud. About 6.5 years ago, we came to market with an online document management solution. There really wasn't anything available in the space. And our CEO had already built out MYOB's document management platform and saw the opportunity to do something in the cloud. About a year after that, we then went down the path of process automation. So process automation is where we're taking those repetitive tasks within your practice and getting the FYI robots to do it for you. So if we think about things like when you onboard a new client, it's the same steps every time. Rolling over jobs, for example, when we're doing bulk mail outs to client, it's the same steps. And so using process automation takes it to a whole other level. And the key here is to save you time. Then a couple of years ago, we saw an opportunity in the practice management space. So from an online practice management solution, FYI was already doing about 70% of what it needed to do. And so we saw the opportunity to build out the rest, being invoicing, time, reporting. And so we did that about 2 years ago. We've now been in market with our new practice management solution, which is called Elite. Which Cass will touch on a little bit, just to tease you a little bit about some of the power of what Elite can do. Thank you, Cass. So as far as where we've grown, so in 6.5 years, we now have over 1,700 practices who use FYI, and that's all the way from sole traders up to the really large end of town. We have over, I think it's now 31,000 users trained on FYI. But the key thing here is look at all of those documents that have been migrated to FYI. We host all of our documents on AWS servers, over 900 million documents in there, of which a good proportion will be ASIC related documents. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today. We do integrate with a number of solutions in the market. So if you see that green, kind of lime green ring next to FYI circle, they are the practice management solutions that we integrate with. And then if we come across into that white area, it's all the other apps within the ecosystem that we integrate with. And you can see pretty much in the middle there is CAS 360. And hopefully that's why you're all here today. Now, I was thinking about, I actually used to do the ASIC work when I was an accountant many years ago, and I remember what a pain it was back then. So I thought this is a good opportunity actually to go to Trudy for a moment. I've listed a few things that I think are an issue when we aren't connecting different apps and documentation. But Trudy, before you turned on the integration between FYI and CAS 360, what was life like?
Thanks, Steph. And everyone, bear with me as I run you through this process of what the old way looked like. So before the integration, we were monitoring, say, a central team email inbox for notifications from our electronic signing provider. I saw their logo on the previous screen, and we were waiting for notifications to come in that those CAS 360 documents had been signed. Then we would file the actual email notification saying that they'd been signed. And then we'd save each attachment individually at the time into our old document management platform. Once we transitioned to FYI, before we turned on the integration, we were filing each attachment into FYI. For annual company statements, we'd delete those emails and that would be it. For the Form 484s, we'd check who was responsible for preparing the document. We'd email them that it had been received and was ready for lodging. So it was kind of very cumbersome, very admin heavy, taking lots of time, especially around June, July, where we would have hundreds of companies with annual review dates. So that process around then could potentially have taken hours. But the reason we were doing it this way was, you've got it on screen there, it was so the accountants could view those statements easily without having documents all over the place or without them needing to log into CAS 360. So that was a primary driver of why we were processing it in that way. But yeah, as you can probably tell, incredibly admin heavy.
That sounds exhausting. I'm tired already just hearing that story, Trudy. Another thing that I found when I used to do it, many, many years ago, was that I would have all the accountants coming to me. Have you done that particular document now? Has the 484 been done yet? I actually found that quite annoying. And on the days that I was off, they'd have to wait for me to come back because they didn't have a login to the solution I was using at the time, which I think it was BGL actually, their desktop version at the time.
I remember that one.
Excellent. I think we've all probably used it. So thank you, Trudy. So there's a problem. So now we want to talk about how the integration with FYI and CAS 360 working together resolves those solutions. So Cass, I'm going to hand over to you to talk through those.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Steph, and great insights there, Trudy. So what we're talking about today, exactly what Steph said, this is about the CAS 360 integration. So I'm going to cover off on the setup steps. We're going to talk about document visibility in FYI, and then we're going to jump into some fun parts. We're going to have a look at some automations and how you can then take the integration to the next level. Now, before we do that, though, I do just want to touch on the fact that within the client success team at FYI, we see practices using the integration two different ways. Now, both of the ways are great, but it really is dependent on the practice's requirements and their tech stack as well, and those internal processes. So the first one that we see is that practices are using the integration purely for filing. So they are having the documents signed via CAS 360 and a document signing integration. And once it's signed, they're having it filed straight back into FYI. Any reminders in terms of outstanding documents, etc., are all being handled within the CAS 360 platform as well. The second iteration of how this works is that we have practices that are preparing the documents in CAS 360, then having them sync back to FYI. From within FYI, they're then using the document signing integration to have the signing components completed, as well as the reminder services happening from within FYI using those automations or within the digital signing platform. So neither one is the right way. Both of them work perfectly well. It honestly just depends on your tech stack, your processes, the requirements for your practice. So let's jump in now and have a look at the requirements around the integration. So for the integration to be successful, your client needs to be added to, for Australian practices, your ASIC agent list, and for our NZ practices, the company's office list. So that's the first one. So that's required so we can actually access the documents. Secondly, it needs to be a match. So your Australian company number or Australian business number or your New Zealand business number need to match between both systems. So they need to be within FYI and they also need to be in CAS 360. And that's how we link and sync those documents together. And the third point there is the client names need to match in the systems as well. So for example, having a client called Growth Partners Proprietary Limited in FYI will not match to something called, for example, Growth Partners Proprietary Limited Trust Fund inside of CAS 360. Same the other way around. So it's really important that those requirements are considered. If they're not met, then the documents won't be able to sync in. So moving on now to the setup of the integration. It is a two-part process. First, we need to connect FYI and CAS 360 together, and then we need to set up the import process as well. So the first step is the connection of the apps. So first, we're going to navigate to the apps page within our automations workspace, and here we'd click on BGL. And once we click on that cog, we will have this particular screen pop up, which is that BGL connection. We simply hit connect. From there, we're then taken straight out to CAS 360, and we'd want to enter an admin's user details. So their login and their password, and that's what then puts that connection in place. Once that happens, we then have a successful connection. So we can see here, we have the account name, shows us when it was connected, and we can also see the last time this was synced. So that last sync is an important one to note, because this is part of where, if you need to troubleshoot why documents weren't imported, this is where you're going to come to. So once we have that connected, maybe we have multiple agent numbers. And so we can then hit connect again to then connect our subsidiary accounts as well. So we can have more than one agent number connected. And I think that's a really important call out for practices, because you are quite potentially running multiple agent numbers, and we're now handling that as well. So before we move on, I just want to call out a couple import options here. You'll see underneath last sync, we have package only. Now, package only, when it's turned on, means that we're only syncing through the signed documents from CAS 360. So that's important. If you're only wanting the signed documents to come through, simply toggle that on, and that setting will then take effect moving forward. If you have it toggled off, it means that all documents will be synced. So I'm talking draft, unsigned, and signed as well. So that's a consideration for your practice on what is important from an access perspective, as Trudy was calling out earlier. For the accountants, is it just a signed document, or are you requiring all versions? The second one here is import solvency minute resolution. Again, if we toggle this on, those documents will sync through separately. If we have it turned off, then they will not. And just another call out, obviously, is a disconnect button if you need to disconnect the integration for any reason. And beside last sync is the reset button. Again, another really key call out here is when we hit the reset button, it's actually going to then import any documents that were missed from the last overnight sync. So potentially, let's say that you have a client and you need to update maybe the client name, maybe that ACN number, the NZBN. You can then hit the reset at that point if you wish, and it's going to then look back the last 3 months and bring in anything that wasn't synced. Potentially, maybe the integration has had an authentication issue and needs to be reconnected. Again, that reset allows you to do that. So that's the connection piece. So once that everything is connected, we now move on to our second step. So our second step is the import and auto file process. So you'll see again, I'm in the automations workspace, this time on the processes tab, and you can see the BGL process by the logo. We're simply going to hit the cog, and this is going to open. Now, this is an FYI system automation, which means that some of these the trigger and the filter cannot be changed. So the triggers by new document filter is obviously the source equals the BGL document. You always, with any automation, need to consider the owner. So this is the person that will get alerted if the automation was to fail, if there was an error on the import, etc. They're the ones that would receive that notification. So that should be set to an FYI admin or someone with automations permissions. And our start from date. So really important here, the start from date can be backdated. So if you are coming in on a particular date, let's use an Australian financial year. Let's say you're coming in on the 1st of July. or maybe the 1st of August, but you want that full financial year set within, you could change that start from date to the 1st of August and bring those last 4 weeks through as well. So that allows you to go back retrospectively, obviously depending on what documents you've migrated, maybe they were already in your original system. So to consider that as part of when you're setting up this initially. You'll see down the bottom there that the step is only one step, and that's simply to import the BGL documents. So we'll see within the filing tab, we have the name. So the original file name is the name of the document as it is presented in CAS 360. So it will say Form 484. It will say Annual Review Statement and Reconciliation and the client name. So it's really important not to change that because we want to make sure that we are honoring where that's coming from, that we have complete visibility on what that document's called. You'll see here I have chosen the Corporate Affairs cabinet and the year is using the merge field. So that merge field again is coming from CAS 360. So it's applying it to the right year at the point of input. So we don't need to actually, once we've set this up, we don't have to come back and make any changes. We can set and forget. So just to call out here with the cabinet, I've chosen corporate affairs because that's in my filing structure. This cabinet can be anything. Some practices use correspondence, some might use permanent. It really depends simply upon what your filing structure looks like. So if corporate affairs isn't the right one, maybe it's corporate compliance, it's just a drop down, changing it to the right one, and then just hitting save. And of course, like anything, once you've got that all set up, it's just activating the process for it to start running. What I will call out here is that some practices may wish to create a task, maybe a comment on the documents that are getting imported, maybe to give visibility to what's coming through. Maybe it's to action what's coming through as well. I would just call out that setting this on this particular automation can cause a little bit of confusion because it's going to run on every document that's imported. So it's going to run on every document that's coming from CAS 360 into your FYI. Now, if you have package only turned off, that means you'll get the notification on every document. So the draft, the unsigned, and the signed. So that's something just to be very conscious of if that's what you're going to do. But I'm actually going to just pass quickly to Trudy because the team at O'Connell's OBM are actually doing this within an automation separate to this one here.
Yeah, thanks, Cassie. The way that we're using it is that once documents have been signed and they've been imported using the integration, then we have a separate automation set up that recognizes that based on some view filters and creates a task for our administration team that those documents are ready to lodge. That's for 484s. For the annual company statements, we don't have any additional automations off the back of it, just a lodgement task.
Brilliant. Excellent. And that sounds like a really good opportunity just to make sure you're really targeting what you need to target. Now, just a couple integration tips just to call out that our documents sync at 4 a.m. daily. So that's our overnight sync. So if a document is received into CAS 360 today, it will then sync in the next overnight sync. So 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Any re-prepared forms will be classed as a new import because it's a new document ID number. So just something to be considered there. If you've got package only turned on, then that's an issue you don't need to worry about. And troubleshooting. What do you do if your documents don't import? Where do you start to look? So as I called out earlier, the first thing to check is the client details, client names, ACN, ABN, NZBN. Make sure they're the same in both of your systems. Look at the process history as well in that automation. Have a look for errors. Obviously, the owner's going to be notified. Go back and have a look at the app. See when it last synced as well. And also, if there are any errors with the connection, practice activity is where you will find that information. You will get an alert or an error if a re-authentication is required. And that's why it's really critical for practice to ensure that they have automation set up around the practice activity views to make sure that they are alerted of that happening. And those are available in our automation library. And just lastly, before we jump into the demo, the documents in FYI. So when documents are imported from CAS 360, where they actually go in FYI. So for our Australian practices, we have the Corporate Affairs tab. So that's where we're going to display your annual statements And you can see on screen that that can be at the group level, which this is, or it can be specifically at the client level. So it gives you that visibility. It tells you the year, it will tell you the status, and also if there are any funds owing. Those documents, so there's annual statements and any other documents, for example, your 484s, they're also going to be within the document space as a PDF. For our New Zealand practices, we are simply importing them straight into the Documents tab as PDFs, and all of those documents are available from there. All right, going to jump into a workshop now. So the workshop's just going to cover around those more efficiencies of the integration. We've talked about how to set it up, and now we're just going to take it a little bit further. We're going to talk around corporate affairs merge fields, an annual review process, and also setting up a new entity as well. Just bear with me. Steph, you should be able to see my demo screen.
Yep.
Beautiful. So let's talk. Earlier, we talked about how practices are using the integration. Maybe everything's sitting within CAS 360. Maybe you're doing some of those tasks inside of your FYI platform. So we're going to jump into knowledge now to templates, because we now have merge fields from the BGL data that we can use to merge data into our email templates. So I'm just going to quickly go through and add a template. Live typing.
No pressure.
Oh, I got it right that time. So if we scroll down, we'll see that we have these new merge fields for BGL. So we've got our annual review date. So obviously that is self-explanatory, and that's one we're going to use in a moment. We've got company class, company type, incorporation date. So maybe that's, an important one if you're sending out a document, maybe to the lawyers, etc. Jurisdiction, registered, and registration date. So let's go through and just create this particular email. So we'll go hello, and we are super friendly. So I can just go through and start to pop in. So we've got a salutation merge field. So we can pop that in there, and we'll add in some content here. So here we're going to use the merge field for the practice itself. So we're going to add in the client name, because this is going to be sent against the company record. And if due for is, and then we'll just go through and add in the annual review date under BGL as well. So we can see we've now quickly created a template. There's probably more that you'd want to add, where we're using that merge field and that data coming from BGL to populate this information rather than the team having to manually type, right? So we're talking about efficiencies again. Just like all of our templates, it's really important to set those auto file defaults so you can control where the filing goes to. Here we can keep building that out. Maybe we choose the year, maybe we let the team choose that when they use it. And of course, once you're happy with it, marking it to active so the team can have that available to them. So that's how we can make even more efficiencies and simplify the processes by using those merge fields from BGL. Now, jumping over to automations, I want to keep in the theme of the annual review process and talk around a company annual review process where everything is still going to be done in CAS 360, but the admin parts that we control as the admin team are done within the automation itself. So I've got one here, and it's scheduled to run on the 1st of each month and running from the 1st of February. And I have a specific client view. So that client view is looking at business structure equals company. We have here two different custom fields. We have do we file, and that's a yes or no, because we only want to run this automation against those that we file on behalf of our clients. And then the company review date. That has some filtering applied, and we're looking at being relative to this month. So this is the annual review dates for these three companies all running. So this automation would automatically run at the start of the month on these three companies here. So that's our view. I now want to walk through the steps. So I'm just going to call out here that this is my demo environment. So I have Elite plan, so I have the time and billing features, but this automation is completely achievable for those that are on the Pro. So it's specifically steps 3, 4, and 5 that are our time and billing components of the Elite plan. But steps 1, 2, 6 and 7, if you're on Pro, it's still going to give you a really great result. So let's talk through that now. So the first one is we're going to create a job. So we're going to have a job for that piece of work. Now, that job is going to automatically default with the client name. We're going to give the job name for company annual review, and then using some really clever merge fields. Now, these are found in our merge fields glossary in our help center. We can actually go now, but only apply the year. So it's going to then run company annual review 2025. Going down, we set a state and we're starting with the dates. So with this particular one here, we are going to start the date as now. So that would be the 1st of February. And our due date here, we can add an interval. So we're running it in to be due in 20 days. Maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want to choose end of month, and we have that option there to automatically apply. So that again just works in how your processes work. Our client and manager are from the client. So we're applying the client, partner, and manager onto the job. We have a description for our job as well. So that's going to get important for step 5 when we're talking about our invoice. And I've also just added in a user custom role of team administrator as well. So pulling that off the client as well. So that's our automation. And you'll notice here a budget of $550. So that's part of our time and billing feature set, and that's going to become important later on. Our next step here is a task, specifically a blocking task, so nothing else will happen until this is completed. And this is to complete the company review. So we've added some details. So this is what's really great about tasks is we can actually put into the details what we need the team members to do. In this instance, we're telling them to log into CAS 360 and complete the annual review process as well. So once the review is completed, sent for signing, we complete this task. It then moves on to a create time step. So from here, I'm going through and we are going to, on the current client, on the job that we set up within step 1, we're going to put a default of 30 minutes using our default time rate. We are then going to automatically create the disbursement against this job as well. So again, it's going to go to the job in step 1. We're going to add a name for that disbursement, and we're using one of our disbursement rates. So we have those all set. It's simply just clicking down and choosing an appropriate one. Once we've done that, we have going to then create an invoice. So we're creating a final invoice. So we're picking up the WIP, we're picking up the disbursement, and then we're going to do the write-on, write-off as appropriate. And that invoice amount is the job budget amount. So that's that $550 I pointed out in step 1. So it's automatically invoicing for us. And that invoice will then go through to workflow for the manager to approve before it goes through to our Xero file. The 6th step is the job will automatically be updated to the state of completed and invoiced. And so within this whole process, the only thing your team member needs to do is complete a task. They simply complete the task. When they've completed the work in CAS 360, the automation is doing the rest. And the final one is just to then update the client. So once we complete the job, we are going to update that company review date custom field to add 1 year. So it's going to simply move from 22nd of February to 2025 to the 22nd of February 2026, which means that this automation is enduring. It will run continuously for years to come. So that's the automation. They're going to go through and do a test. So we're going to run this on Duncan Holdings, which was on our list. And then we're going to jump across to our history page, and that job's going to load. So we can see here that the job's already been created. So as I said, Duncan Holidays Proprietary Limited, Company Annual Review 2025. We then have a task. So if we jump in now and we open the job, I could go through here. We'll see this task. So this is our job here, our job details, our name, all of the information that we've populated going through here, and that $550 budget as well. So we go through, we complete the task, and then that's going to go through and it's going to start to run the rest of our automation. So we can see immediately I've got my half-hour time entry for my time. I've got my disbursement of $350. And if I jump across to my invoices, we can see that we have this draft invoice sitting here ready to go. So we go down to the details, we can see it's $550 and I've got a write on of $40. So we can go through, we can approve that invoice there, and that's then going to push up into zero for the rest of it might be that at that point we approve to send out for payment within that platform. We jump back to our job here, we'll see that it's completed and invoiced. And if we jump into our client itself and we go to here, we can see that company review date has updated to the 17th of February 2026. So this is now ready to go for next year. So that's it very, very quickly in a nutshell. Now this invoice has synced up to zero while I was talking, and we can see that we also split that invoice out. So that's because we went with disbursements as a detailed option. We've got the disbursement and we've got the annual review itemized out quite nicely. Like I know a lot of practices like to have those charges separate. So that's the first automation to run through. I am conscious of time, so I'm quickly going to talk around the establishment of a new company. So again, this is another automation that can be run when you've got a new company to order. And as I mentioned, it is a service that BGL do offer as well. So we've got this very first create task to go through and order the new company in CAS 360. Once you've got that signed client approval, update the client in the practice management software. This one is to run manually, so it's not scheduled like the other. The team choose to run it. Running it from list is super helpful at this point as well. The next step is to go through and invoice the new entity and collate for signing. If you're using the elite features, the time and billing features, this is where you could break this out and do exactly what I did. Add the disbursement, add the time, and prepare the invoice within FYI. If you're on the Pro plan, then it's going out to your practice management software solution and doing those particular steps. But all of these are blocking tasks, meaning that nothing further can be done until these tasks are completed. Next task is to apply for this tax and business registration. So really important because this is such a defined process that nothing is missed. We then create a phone call, a call for the client to come in and sign if we're still getting physical signatures. Obviously, that's not applicable if we're doing electronic signing. Again, it really depends upon your stack and your processes and requirements. But you see from here, you have the ability to automate the processes. So they can be client facing, like the first one. They can be simply an internal process to go through and guide, and it gives you full activity, audit activity as well. So if someone marks off the task, you've got that transparency, you know who's done it, you know when they did it, and maybe they marked it off but not done the task. You can go back and see that as well. So that's the demo section complete. I'm going to now pass back to Steph to learn a little bit more about what O'Connell's OBM are doing.
Thank you, Cass. And look, I know I'm really biased. Watching those automations gets me quite excited about the time savings and how efficient it is.
Yeah.
And Trudy, I hope that gets you guys excited about upgrading to Elite from here.
Yes, I was just thinking we're not on Elite just yet, but the more and more I see about it, particularly those disbursements and the like, the automations there, I am excited.
It's brilliant. Thank you very much for joining us, Trudy. As I mentioned, we caught up last week to have a chat about how you're using the CAS 360 and FYI automation. And as you were talking, you said something, and Cassie took note when you said that with the integration, it's so easy now, we don't even need to worry about it. So I would love to dive into that for the next 5 minutes, just so that everyone else can hear all about that.
Yeah,
How
absolutely.
are you using the integration? Tell us all about it.
Well, you know, that entire process that I stepped you through at the beginning, very long, very clunky, lots of manual saving of documents. Like I'm saying, we don't even need to worry about it. Now we don't do any of that at all. So we've got the integration set up. It was really easy to do. The company statements, like Cassie showed, they're filed automatically onto the corporate affairs tab for us once they're signed. Happens daily, like Cassie said. And then from our point of view, no interaction from the team members is involved, no manual input or consideration at all. I mentioned earlier that we've got a central email inbox. So that was receiving notifications that those annual review documents had been signed. We really wanted to reduce clutter, reduce the mental load of managing that inbox. So we've also set up some rules in Outlook that filter off those documents to a subfolder so that they're not even hitting the email inbox or the FYI in tray. Once the client signs them, there's just no input needed from us at all. So not touching that in June, July. That's fantastic. Then for the Form 484s, so again, we've got that email filter that's making sure the alert that the documents have been signed isn't cluttering the in tray or the inbox. But then, like I mentioned before, we do have a separate automation set up that recognizes, hey, the Form 484 has been signed. It creates a task for our admin team. It's an unallocated task, so everyone in the admin team can see it, just saying that this document is here and needs to be lodged. So once a day now, instead of wading through different documents in our in tray or the email inbox, we're just jumping on, looking at those tasks, jumping into CAS and lodging them as needed. We just mark the task as complete and it's done. So that's just completely reduce the load, reduce the admin burden there. And yeah, it's so easy now. We don't even need to worry about it.
I like the quote. I hope that everyone listening to this now feels empowered and excited to go away and implement it as well to get the same benefits that you're getting. Talking about time savings. Now, imagine this is saving a lot of people across the board quite a lot of time now. I mean, can you even quantify what that even looks like?
Yeah, look, Steph, I was trying to think about the time specifically, and I keep coming back to, those last few months of the financial year, from tax planning basically through to July, when we've got a lot of annual reviews. I would say that during that busy time, just to hazard a guess, there could be hours a day saved in filing, in manual filing. So that's huge. And then I think beyond just the time saving, we've got improved accuracy. So we were manually changing things, selecting clients. None of that is on the table anymore. So everything's going back to the correct company. There's no room for human error. And then again, I mentioned this briefly before, but reducing the clutter in that central in tray and inbox as well. That's a huge time saving and just a huge win for reducing our mental load as well. Keeping that space free for client emails that need actioning. And so that's also, I might just comment here because people might be saying, oh, well, but what happens if changes are needed or a client's not happy? That means that we can see those as they come in. A client might get the document to sign, and then when they reply to that, depending on your electronic signing platform, we're still receiving that email from a client saying, oops, no, this needs to be updated. Just means we don't have to wade through a lot of other notifications. So we see what we need to when we need to see it, which is really good.
And that was actually what I was wondering. Has it also positively impacted the client experience as well?
Yeah, probably indefinitely it has, because now the team that are managing that process, again, like I said, they're just able to see items that require actioning really easily. So, our commitment to clients is to return calls and emails within 24 hours at the latest, if not earlier. And again, just the process, particularly when you've got multiple administration team members managing an inbox, making sure that, or the in tray, depending on how you're working, just making sure that you can see what has to happen easily is definitely a win for clients as well.
I love it. And you've talked about the admin team who are doing all the work. What about for everyone else at O'Connell's OBM? How has this impacted them?
Yeah, look, you might have been listening to the process I was talking through and thinking that the way we were doing things was overkill or unnecessary, given that those documents just go back into CAS 360. But a large part of the benefit, or the reason we were doing it that way, was for the benefit of the accounting staff. And Cassie and Steph both touched on this briefly, but it was for those that aren't in CAS day to day and who, while working on a client file, they might easily need to see a snapshot of the latest statement, what the company's looking like. Perhaps they don't have login details to CAS, or from a security perspective, perhaps you're trying to limit who's logging into CAS. So that's why we were manually filing everything back in so that everyone could see the company information that they needed to. And now with this integration, admin don't have to do it, but accounting staff know where to go for that information. There's no needing to wait around for myself or our practice manager to be in the office. They don't have to worry about logging in. Security's improved. Everyone just knows, okay, it's in FYI, go to the corporate affairs tab for annual company statements and it's there. So yeah, there's definitely benefits to other team members and just general security as well from a technology point of view.
It's really sad how much your story is exciting me. I'm sorry about that as an old accountant. And my last question to you would be around disbursements. Do you manage the disbursements for this type of work?
Yeah, look, and I was getting really excited while Cassie was talking. I'm not going to lie here. Our current approach to managing the ASIC charges could probably use some improvement, a lot of improvement after I've just seen Cassie's demo there. We charge our clients a flat fee for maintaining the company register in CAS 360. So currently the process looks like we run a report out of CAS. We fiddle around in some spreadsheets to match up each company with the correct billing head in XPM because we're using XPM for practice management at the moment. We need to find the correct disbursement job code, and then we create a bulk disbursement file and we're manually importing that to XPM. Keeping in mind, we did only transition to XPM and FYI 7 months ago, so this process hasn't been optimized yet. However, that's also the reason why, having seen the demo and the opportunities that Elite offers in terms of automating some of those disbursements, that really excites me from the little snippets that I've been able to see. Looks like huge potential time savings there.
Excellent. Well, we're all excited, so I'll call you after for a demo, don't worry. But for now, just looking at the time, Trudy, thank you so much for sharing your insights. I know it's one thing to see us demo, but it's a whole other thing to actually hear someone who's using it. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
So to wrap things up at our end, because I'm in the sales team, if you are not using FYI, then please cast your eyes to the blue box on the left. There is a QR code to book a demo of FYI with me. But Cassie, how can existing users follow up from here?
Thank you, Steph, and to Trudy as well. So for existing users, if you aren't yet have that connection between CAS 360 and FYI, the first green QR code will take you straight to the Help Center articles to get you started. It's running through everything I showed earlier. And if you're wanting to learn a little bit more about Elite and how those efficiencies could impact the positive in your practice, then you've got that QR code on the right. That will take you to our Elite landing page, which includes a demo and also some additional information about the product as well. I want to say on behalf of Steph, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been our pleasure presenting how this integration can have a positive impact and give you even more efficiencies in your practice. And I'm going to hand back to Lily.
Thank you, Cassie, and amazing demo. Thank you so much for that. Steph and Trudy, it was great to hear some insights from a practice level. I'm sure everyone online found that very insightful. And to our attendees, thank you for joining us. It does bring our webinar to a close, but as I mentioned at the beginning, we did record the session, so you will receive a copy of the recording. It also goes up on our YouTube channel. And any questions that were asked but not answered, someone from either BGL or FYI will certainly get back to you. And I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, Lily.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks. Bye.